Welcome back to another video on the no input mixing board. Today, I'm going to be talking about auxiliary send channels and some of the techniques that become available using these routing options on our mixing board. We've seen how these auxiliary sends can be used to create stable oscillators, but today I want to focus on using them as a means of processing and routing other signals on the mixing board. To start, I'm going to create a basic stable oscillator here. And I'm going to create a connection from the auxiliary send into another channel here. As I start to route this loop into this channel here, we'll hear this loop in its unaltered form. You can hear that this is the same. We've just routed it to another channel. But now that we've routed it to another channel, we have created some more opportunities to shape that wave, even starting with the EQ here. Whereas on our original channel, the EQ was so closely bound to the feedback loop that adjustments here could be used to adjust the pitch of the oscillator. Adjustments to the EQ over here can instead be used to shape that tone more like you would expect an EQ to behave. I'm going to turn this up to about unity so that we can hear it a little clearer. I can accent or cut out the mids, the highs, the lows, and really get some more traditional use of the EQ through the Aux Send channel. However, where this starts to get really interesting is when we start to introduce a little bit of feedback into this channel as well, which gives us more complex wave shaping on this processed signal. So here's the original. Here it is with some low cut. I'm going to turn up the highs a little bit here. Now listen as I open the feedback. We can really get some feedback on those highs, and now I'm going to start to play with the EQ. And you'll notice that we're not just getting some additional complex wave shaping, we're also getting some harmonically related tones to that initial tone there. And this is something really cool that you get with feedback and distortion on signal processing, which is a form of subharmonic distortion, where our feedback channel locks into subharmonics or frequency divisions of the original signal. We can really start to hear this as I bring the bass back in, and we're going to lock into successively lower subharmonic divisions of our initial frequency. So let's go ahead and listen to some of this subharmonic distortion. I'm going to increase the aux send past 100%, and then I'm going to start to bring up the low end here. Subharmonic distortion is really cool as this like big powerful way to distort the signal into lower and lower related frequencies to that initial signal. Resetting the mixer, I want to talk about a more delicate technique that we can also achieve with these auxiliary send channels. This takes a send that has feedback in it such that it is almost oscillating or producing a noise, but not quite. This near oscillating channel, or a resonant channel, you might call it, can then be pinged by other channels that we send into it, particularly sub-audio pulses, to produce really nice effects similar to a filter ping in modular synthesis. So I'm going to construct a feedback loop here. I'm going to take out my lows, boost my mids. And get it so that we're not hearing that sound anymore. On another channel, I'm going to increase the feedback, the amplitude on my feedback loop here until I've driven this loop down into a sub-audio pulse range. And now I'm going to start to send some of that pulse into this near oscillating channel. And I'm going to play with these until I get the It's very delicate work here, but you can see the delicate types of sounds that we can get. And of course, using mostly our mids and highs, we can adjust the pitch of this tone that we're getting out of here as well. But all of those adjustments are also going to adjust the oscillation point of this feedback loop. So we can play around very delicately to try and find different things. And of course, by changing the rhythms that we send into it, we pulse at different rates. I'm going to construct a second one of these channels to create polyrhythms and overlapping pulse patterns into my aux send here. And if I start to give these different adjustments to the EQ, we can play with how these pulses are interacting with each other. Coming back to a default point on the mixing board with all of our channels reset, there's one final technique that I want to show, and that's what happens when we construct two aux send channels and route them into each other. even with something as simple as two aux sends running into each other, there's a large space of play in between those two channels as you're routing them not only in parallel like a standard sub-loop construction on the mixing board, but also into each other as a more complex routing. So just to summarize with this video, there are a couple of different ways that we can take these auxiliary sends and use them for more complex techniques. Things like wave shaping and subharmonic distortion, more delicate techniques like filter pinging or channel pinging in this case, and also with cross-modulation for complex interactions between channels. Hopefully this gives a couple more ideas for how you can approach your mixing board, and I wish you the best of luck exploring its sonic potential.